Same trip, same country, two totally different experiences. In 2007, I traveled like a tourist, overcrowded and unprepared. In 2023, I traveled like a local and everything changed. I'm Diego from Go Canada, and here are the three biggest shifts that made the biggest differences.
So, shift number one, where you would actually go. And if we think about it, most tourists, they head straight to the famous spots. One is Niagara Falls, super famous, Banff, Jasper, and of course, at the same time, everybody else is going there. So meaning peak hour, peak crowds, and peak prices as well. And here's what locals do instead. If you check out Banff, you just saw, I wanted to show that afterwards. But if we just check out Banff, that's what everybody else is going to. And if you look at the pictures, or you can even use Street View to get an idea to get around Banff, you see it's super picturesque and beautiful. It looks like a fully fledged resort. But instead of staying in Banff, for example, consider staying in Canmore. And if we, let's get back to the map, if we put in the route, it's only 20 minutes away. And if you look at Canmore itself, of course, it's not as picturesque as Banff, but still beautiful. A lot of recommendations from locals to go there instead of Banff. Still quaint and many things to do. Good starting point. And definitely you pay less and you get more in Canmore, from food to less crowds. So a win overall. Then same thing goes with Niagara. So many people have Niagara on their to-do list, we included. And when you go to Niagara, that's what expects us probably as well. You're gonna share the experience with thousands of people. And what locals would do instead, they go early to the Niagara Falls or even late, and you see it is not as crowded as midday or in the middle of the day. And of course, it's a beautiful spot. I mean, it's that tourist attraction in the region and definitely worth doing it, but being mindful that it will be shared with many other tourists as well. And if you don't want to be there early in the morning, you might even think of skipping it altogether. One alternative would be, but keep in mind still crowded, is Niagara-on-the-Lake, which is a super picturesque little town, very famous as well, if not mistaken. We're gonna see this year too. So if you wanna know more about Niagara-on-the-Lake, follow us on our 2 months trip. And when you look at these pictures, you get the vibe. It's beautiful, it's quaint, but super touristy. So if you're looking for a more laid back feeling, less crowded, less touristy, then think of St. Catharines as an alternative, which is instead of going to Niagara, you're going to St. Catharines. It's an urban area, not as picturesque, but still locals would recommend it as a great alternative because it's cheaper, has many shopping stores as well, and more of the local sorts of stuff than these very international brands. From what I've heard, it is beautiful as well. You're close to Lake Ontario too. Has a beautiful little quaint city core. It's a bit bigger city though. And what locals recommend as well is if you're gonna be there, get to the Lakeside Park. And let me see, seems like Street View doesn't work here, but you get the vibe. It's similar in vibe, similar scenery, close to vineyards as well, but a great alternative and beautiful. And St. Catharines as well, as you see here on the map, has a lot of green areas within the city. So enough places where you can chill, sit back and enjoy. So now let's talk about shift number 2, which is about preparation for a Canada trip. And that's the point where tourists underestimate Canada all the time. And believe me, I did it too when I planned it the first time myself in 2007. And there are three things people get completely wrong, especially if you're coming from Europe. First is, as you see here on the page on the right-hand side, the weather. In the Rockies, it can be 25 degrees. It can be even close to 20 degrees during the night, but it's kind of, you never know how the weather goes in the Rockies, which is similar to the mountains, to the Alps here in Europe as well. But the thing is, you can get up in the morning and it's 0 degrees. We're still in May, but in June or July, it could be still the same, that it might get up with freezing temperatures. So you need layers. And then in the afternoon, it's going to be warm, close to 25 to 30 degrees. And that means when you prepare a trip to the Rockies, you need to bring your layers with you, that you are ready in case of temperature changes. And as you're in the mountains, it can change very fast. Then the next thing, which I just read about again in a Reddit commentary, the distances. People think of, yeah, well, let's see the Niagara Falls, and then in the afternoon I go to Whistler. But they completely underestimate the distances. So to visualize this, if you think of, yeah, I can do Calgary to Vancouver in a day, then you will see immediately that it's kind of not the case. That's also a great example, by the way. From Niagara to Calgary, those are over 3,000 kilometers. So you already see that is quite a distance, and it doesn't seem on the map that way. So Niagara in the morning, Whistler in the afternoon doesn't work. And it's expensive too, by the way, for flying. But getting back to the thing, Calgary to Vancouver is an over 10 hours drive. And we talk here close to 1,000 kilometers if you take the direct way, which is not always the most beautiful road to take getting to Vancouver. So it might even take you longer. So if you compare that, for example, Zurich to, Hamburg, just to visualize. Here we have 11 hours, close to 1,000 kilometers. And of course, Zurich to Hamburg is a bit shorter, but just to see the differences, it's not that far away. So Calgary to Vancouver isn't doable in 1 day, as it wouldn't be from Switzerland to Hamburg, especially if you count in the stops in between. And then thirdly is about booking in the right places. And here on this, I have opened 2 pages, Expedia and Booking. Show you that you can use both booking systems. They always have good rates as well, especially in fall with early bird discounts, but also during Black Friday and end of year, there's always a sale. Anyway, what I want to show you here is Canmore is only 20 minutes away from Banff, but if you want to book an accommodations, you might want to consider Canmore instead of Banff. Because if you look through, prices are way higher in Banff than they are in Canmore. Not only you have a better selection in Canmore, but also it's lower. Some of the hotels are equal in price, but you get more selection with accommodations that are at the lower price level than in Banff. I would say from what I've seen and from my own experience, it's rather closer to at least 1,500 Swiss francs, which is over $2,000 Canadian dollars, than in Canmore, where it's more like around $1,000 for 3 nights. Yeah, for 3 nights. So if you travel as a family, that makes a huge difference. That's also one of the reasons why on our trip this year, we booked mainly apartments via Airbnb and VRBO instead of hotels and inns. Because better pricing, you got your own washing machine, your own facilities. So a bit better and more flexibility. But as you see, I use the same dates, would be super late to book accommodations. So my selection is already less good, and the same goes for Banff. So if you put it all together and multiply this over weeks and not just a few days, you just saved yourself a whole extra trip. So if you multiply these over a whole week or weeks, you have just saved yourself enough for a whole extra trip. And the thing is, local know this. They know to pack in layers, they know to book early, and they know how to budget realistically and what the alternatives are. And they also know that they have to ask, most often locals, what are their recommendations to save time and not get surprised by anything like weather or high prices.
Hey, if you want help planning smarter trips like this, then check out my free travel kit for Western Canada in the description below.
So let's talk about shift number 3, having an actual plan. So many tourists still believe they can try to figure out things on the way and play it just by ear. And that's where it falls apart in Canada. That just doesn't work anymore nowadays. It worked a few years ago, but it's not working anymore. Here's what happens. Banff parking lots usually fill up very fast in the morning. And you want to see these iconic places like Moraine, Lake Louise, and then you get there and surprised they don't have any spot to park. Everything is full. And if you would just have done the research in advance, you would have known that you could have saved yourself a lot of time and trouble. So when you're visiting Lake Louise and Moraine Lake, check out the Parks Canada page on the right-hand side. And as I already mentioned here on the page, planning ahead is essential to find yourself a spot. If you want to visit Lake Louise and Moraine Lake, which you can find here is Lake Louise, here's the lake itself, and here's Moraine Lake. So if you want to visit these places, you need to book shuttle services on the Parks Canada reservation page. And be mindful, these spots are sold out weeks in advance, especially during peak season, meaning no shuttle, no lake visit to Lake Louise or Moraine Lake. And just to give you a hint where you would need to go is, you would need to go to the park and ride at the Lake Louise Ski Resort. You look at it, you get an impression how huge that is, how many people visit on a daily basis these areas. And you clearly see here in the picture how many people are visiting these special places. They're awfully beautiful, but without a shuttle service, no go. And that's why I'm saying locals don't wing it. They know what to do. They book in advance. They make sure they have their spots. And when they have a rough route, they leave room for spontaneous stuff in between. Imagine that you have long driving days with no backup plan and the weather turns, then there's a road closure and you're tired. And that's where the difference is, where locals don't just wing it. They are prepared to check for how the roads are. Is there any construction site? Is there a fire where you can't take a specific route? So they don't just wing it. They know exactly what they do. They book things in advance before they sell out. They have a rough route. They have backup plans. And they leave room for spontaneous stuff in between. So all I'm saying is plan the structure, wing the details. So you still gonna have a ton of flexibility. And that's where the difference comes. Because you're prepared and you don't need to rush. You don't need to be stressed because you know exactly what comes next.
Let me know in the comments below what's the best way you ever save money on a trip. Planning a trip like a local can completely change your experience in Canada, saving you time, money, and stress. And if you're planning a road trip, doing it the wrong way, it can cost you money and even more. So watch this video next to avoid the biggest road trip mistakes in Canada.